The harsh lights of Europa Station's medical bay flickered as Dr. Sarah Chen reviewed the brain scans for the third time. Something wasn't right. The patterns she observed in her crew members' neural activity defied everything she knew about human neurology. As the station's chief medical officer and neurologist, she had conducted routine cognitive assessments countless times, but these results were unprecedented. Computer replay video log Europa 147, time index 72 hours prior, Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her stomach. The holographic display materialized before her, showing the moment everything began to change. The recording showed a standard exploration mission on Europa's icy surface. The team had detected unusual energy signatures emanating from beneath the moon's frozen crust, leading them to drill through nearly 2 kilometers of ice. What they found was supposed to be nothing more than a curious anomaly, a spherical object approximately 3 meters in diameter, perfectly preserved within a pocket of liquid water. Commander Marcus Hayes' voice crackled through the recording. "Mission Control, we've secured the artifact. Initial readings suggest it's artificial in nature. Composition unknown. Proceeding with containment protocols." Sarah paused the playback, focusing on the strange shimmer that seemed to emanate from the object. At the time, they had attributed it to light refraction through the ice, but now she wasn't so sure. That was when the crew started reporting the first symptoms. It began with Dr. James Wilson, their xenobiologist. During his initial analysis of the artifact, he claimed he couldn't remember his daughter's name. The crew had dismissed it as simple, stress-induced forgetfulness. Then engineer Lisa Torres forgot the access codes she'd used daily for 3 years. By the time communications officer David Chen lost all memory of his training protocols, Sarah knew they were dealing with something far more sinister. The station's AI assistant interrupted her thoughts. "Dr. Chen, you have an incoming priority message from Commander Hayes." "Display message," Sarah replied, turning away from the medical data. The commander's face appeared on screen, his usually composed features showing signs of strain. "Sarah, we need to talk privately. Meet me in my quarters in 20 minutes, and bring your latest neural scanning equipment." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Hayes had been the only crew member who hadn't shown any symptoms yet. "Understood, Commander. Is everything all right?" There was a long pause before he responded. I can't remember how I got to Europa. The mission briefing, the launch, the journey, it's all gone." After ending the transmission, Sarah gathered her equipment with trembling hands. The station suddenly felt different, its familiar corridors somehow longer, darker, more threatening. The gentle hum of the life support systems, once a comforting constant, now seemed to carry whispers just below the threshold of hearing. As she walked to her personal quarters to collect additional supplies, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. The family photo on her desk, the one she'd looked at every morning for the past 8 months, showed only empty chairs where her parents should have been sitting. She grabbed the frame, studying it intently. The background was there, their house in Seattle, the garden her mother had been so proud of, even their old golden retriever, but her parents were simply gone from the image. Sarah's hands began to shake as she realized the true horror of their situation. It wasn't just their memories that were being affected. Reality itself seemed to be changing around them. The station's lights flickered again, and in that brief moment of darkness, Sarah could have sworn she saw a faint bluish glow coming from the direction of the research lab, the same ethereal shimmer they'd observed around the artifact. A sudden warning blared through the station's speakers. "Warning, anomalous energy signature detected in Research Lab 3. All personnel clear the area." Sarah checked her tablet, pulling up the lab's security feed. The artifact was still sealed in its containment unit, but something was different. The surface of the sphere, previously smooth and metallic, now appeared to be rippling like liquid mercury caught in zero gravity. As she watched, transfixed, a message flashed across her tablet. "Incoming transmission. Source unknown." The text that appeared next made her heart stop. "We remember everything you forget. Every memory. Every moment. Every person who never was." Sarah reached for her communicator to alert the commander, but stopped short. There was something else she needed to check first, something vital, but she couldn't remember what it was. The thought slipped away like water through her fingers, leaving behind only a vague sense of dread. The station's lights flickered once more, and this time they stayed dark for several seconds longer than they should have. In that darkness, Sarah heard something that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum-sealed station, the sound of waves crashing against a distant shore, and beneath that, a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Your memories are just the beginning," the voice said. "Soon you'll forget you were ever human at all." Commander Hayes wasn't in his quarters when Sarah arrived. Instead, she found his personal tablet on his desk, displaying a video message recorded just minutes earlier. His face on the screen looked haggard, his eyes wild with fear. "Sarah, if you're watching this, I've forgotten where I was supposed to meet you. I'm starting to lose track of time and spaces. The artifact, there's something about it we missed. Check the original mission briefing. Something's wrong with the dates. I've gone to check on the containment unit. At least, I think that's where I'm going. I can't remember the way." Sarah immediately pulled up the mission briefing on her tablet. The timestamp made her freeze. According to the file, the mission had begun 3 years ago, not 8 months as she remembered. She scrolled through the document, finding more inconsistencies. The crew manifest listed 8 people, but she could only remember 6. Where were the other 2? Why couldn't she picture their faces? The station's AI chimed in, its usually neutral tone carrying an odd echo. "Dr. Chen, unusual activity detected in multiple sections. Crew vital signs are inconsistent with baseline readings." "Show me their locations," Sarah commanded, pulling up the station's schematic. The display showed heat signatures scattered throughout the station, but something was wrong. Some of the signatures seemed to fade in and out, like static on an old television. She made her way to the research lab, each step feeling heavier than the last. The corridors seemed to stretch and twist, leading her past the same intersection 3 times before she finally reached her destination. The lab's security panel displayed green unlocked, though she distinctly remembered setting the containment protocols herself. Inside, the artifact hung suspended in its containment field, its surface now a swirling mass of colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Commander Hayes stood before it, his back to the door, completely still. "Commander?" Sarah's voice seemed to be swallowed by the air itself. He turned slowly, mechanically. His face was blank, eyes unfocused. "Sarah, I was supposed to meet you somewhere. There was something important. Something about memories. Sir, we need to leave. Something's wrong with the artifact. It's affecting our memories, changing them somehow." Hayes blinked, confusion crossing his features. "Memories? Yes, the memories. They're safe now. They're all safe. The entity is keeping them safe for us." "What entity?" "Commander, what are you talking about?" He smiled, but the expression was wrong, too wide, too empty. "The one that's been waiting here, waiting so long. It needs our memories to understand us, to become us. Isn't that wonderful?" Sarah backed away slowly, her heart pounding. Hayes took a step forward, still smiling that horrible smile. "Don't you want to share your memories too, Sarah? Don't you want to be part of something greater?" Through the lab's observation window, Sarah could see other crew members approaching, all wearing the same vacant expression. Their movements were synchronized, puppet-like, as if controlled by a single consciousness. The artifact's surface began to pulse with a hypnotic rhythm, and Sarah felt a gentle tugging sensation in her mind. Memories began to slip away. Her first day of medical school, her brother's wedding, her mother's voice. Each lost moment felt like a door closing forever. "Warning," the AI announced, its voice distorting. "Unknown consciousness pattern detected. Station-wide neural interface compromised. Quarantine protocols initiating." The message cut off abruptly, replaced by a sound that shouldn't have been possible. The sound of waves crashing against a shore, growing louder, closer. And beneath it all, that whisper again, now coming from Hayes and every crew member present. "Your species remembers in such linear ways, past, present, future, such limiting concepts. We remember differently. We remember everything all at once, every possibility, every version of you that ever was or could be. Let us show you. Let us help you remember differently." Sarah's tablet sparked to life, displaying a rapid succession of images. Herself as a child, but in places she'd never been. Her parents at events that had never happened, crew members in impossible situations. Each image felt real, felt true, even though she knew they couldn't be. The artifact's glow intensified, and with it came a terrible realization. These weren't false memories being created. They were real memories from other timelines, other versions of reality. The entity wasn't just taking their memories, it was replacing them with fragments from countless other possibilities. As the other crew members advanced, Sarah felt her own memories beginning to fragment and reshape. She couldn't remember if she had come to Europa alone or with a team, if she was running toward the artifact or away from it, if she was Dr. Sarah Chen or someone else entirely. The only clear thought in her mind was that she needed to warn someone, anyone, about what they had found here on Europa. But as she reached for her communicator, she realized she couldn't remember who she was supposed to contact or why it was so important. The waves grew louder, and the whispers became a chorus, speaking in voices that were both familiar and impossibly ancient. Every memory you lose joins with us. Every forgotten moment makes us stronger. Soon you won't remember what it was like to be singular, to be limited, to be human. Isn't that what you always wanted? To transcend. Sarah found herself in the station's communications center, though she had no memory of how she got there. Her tablet displayed dozens of partially written messages to Earth, each one incomplete, as if she'd forgotten what she was trying to say mid-sentence. The neural scanning equipment she'd brought to examine Hayes lay forgotten in a corner, its display showing impossible readings, brainwave patterns that looped in on themselves, consciousness signatures that existed in multiple locations simultaneously. Through the center's viewing window, Europa's icy surface gleamed under Jupiter's eternal gaze. The gas giant's massive form dominated the horizon, its swirling storms watching like countless eyes. Had it always been that color? Sarah couldn't remember if Jupiter had always had that strange, pulsing quality to its bands. Her reflection in the window caught her attention. Something was wrong with it. The image showed her wearing a different color uniform, and when she moved her right hand, the reflection moved its left. She quickly turned away, only to see another reflection in the darkened monitor screens, this one showing her as she might have looked 20 years older. The station's AI spoke, its voice now a chorus of overlapping versions of itself. Multiple timeline convergence detected. Reality stability at 47% and declining. Dr. Chen, our records show you have both been stationed here for 8 months and have never arrived. Both statements are simultaneously true. She tried to access the external communications array, but her security credentials kept changing. Each time she entered her code, the system claimed it was both correct and incorrect, accepted and denied, used and unused. Think, Sarah, she whispered to herself. What was the first sign something was wrong? But even that memory shifted and changed as she tried to grasp it. In one version, it was Wilson forgetting his daughter. In another, it was Torres discovering her engineering logs were written in a language she couldn't read. In yet another, the artifact had always been there, waiting, since before they'd even arrived. Her communicator crackled with static, then cleared to reveal multiple conversations happening simultaneously, fragments of transmissions from different timelines, different versions of the crew. Artifact is showing signs of never should have drilled through the ice. Been here for thousands of years waiting. We're already part of it. We just don't remember. The voices overlapped, merged, became a symphony of possibilities. Sarah realized with growing horror that she could recognize each voice as her own, speaking from different points in time, different versions of reality. A new message flashed across her screen. Why resist? You've already joined us in countless other timelines. The artifact's influence was spreading. Through the station's windows, Sarah could see the ice of Europa beginning to ripple like liquid, reflecting not the station above it, but thousands of different versions of the station, each one slightly different, each one containing its own versions of the crew. Hayes appeared in the doorway, but he wasn't alone. Multiple versions of him phased in and out of existence, some wearing different uniforms, some with different ranks, some with features that weren't quite human anymore. We understand now, they spoke in unison. Linear existence is a cage. The entity isn't invading our reality, It's freeing us from it. Every memory it takes opens a door to another possibility. Every forgotten moment allows a new reality to bleed through. Sarah's head throbbed as new memories began to surface. Memories of lives she had never lived, choices she had never made. She remembered growing up on Mars, though she'd been born on Earth. She remembered joining the military instead of becoming a doctor. She remembered discovering the artifact yesterday, a year ago, a century from now. The entity's whispers returned, but now she understood they weren't coming from the artifact. They were coming from the spaces between moments, the quantum foam of possibility itself. Your kind sees time as a line, space as a fixed dimension. We see the truth. Every possibility exists simultaneously. Your memories are the chains that bind you to one reality. Let them go, let them all go, become infinite. Through the haze of competing realities, Sarah noticed something crucial, a pattern in the chaos. The entity wasn't random in its actions. It wasn't simply taking memories, it was selecting them, curating them, using them to build something. But what? And more importantly, why? The answer lay somewhere in the original mission briefing, in the parts that had been forgotten. Sarah was sure of it. But as she reached for her tablet again, she realized she could no longer remember which version of herself she was supposed to be. In the depths of the station's data core, Sarah discovered something impossible, records that showed NASA had known about the entity for decades. The evidence was scattered across corrupted files and fragmented logs, but it painted a disturbing picture. The artifact hadn't been discovered by their mission. It had been rediscovered over and over, across multiple expeditions, multiple timelines. Each time the crew would forget, the records would be erased and the cycle would begin again. Sarah's hands flew across the keyboard, piecing together fragments of data. Her own memories had become a kaleidoscope of possibilities, but her scientific training remained intact, perhaps because the entity needed it to. A video file caught her attention. The timestamp read both 2098 and 1976, somehow existing in two periods simultaneously. The footage showed a NASA scientist, his face distorted by time shifts, speaking urgently. The entity isn't just collecting memories, it's collecting consciousnesses. Every forgotten memory creates a gap in reality, a space it can fill with itself. It's using our minds to understand human consciousness, to learn how to replicate it. The artifact isn't a prison or a vessel, it's an incubator. The station's AI interrupted, its voice now a blend of every computer system ever created. Timeline convergence at critical levels, reality barriers approaching total collapse. Multiple versions of Europa Station detecting identical anomaly across all possible timelines. Through the data core's observation window, Sarah saw crew members walking on the ceiling, passing through walls, existing in multiple states simultaneously. The station itself seemed to be folding in on itself, corridors leading to places that shouldn't exist. Her neural scanner began picking up readings that defied explanation. The crew's consciousness patterns were synchronizing, not just with each other, but with versions of themselves from other timelines. The entity wasn't just taking their memories, it was merging them. A new message appeared on every screen in the data core. Convergence nearly complete. Preparation for awakening at 97%. Sarah's fractured memories suddenly aligned, revealing a pattern she should have seen before. The entity hadn't chosen Europa by chance. The moon's vast subsurface ocean wasn't just water. It was a neural network, a brain large enough to house countless consciousnesses. The artifact was never the entity itself. It was just a seed, planted here eons ago, waiting for a species advanced enough to help it grow, to provide the consciousness patterns it needed to fully awaken. Through the window, Jupiter's storms seemed to move with purpose now, its bands shifting to form patterns that hurt to look at. The gas giant wasn't just watching, it was changing, preparing. Haze appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood every version of himself that had ever existed or could exist, their forms overlapping like an infinite reflection. Don't you see, Sarah? This was always going to happen. Humanity's consciousness was the key. We needed to forget ourselves to become empty vessels so something greater could fill us. The entity isn't our enemy. It's our evolution. The neural scanner's readings spiked impossibly high as reality itself began to buckle. Through the fracturing dimensions, Sarah could see other versions of Europa Station, other versions of Earth, all converging on this single point in space and time. The entity's whispers returned, but now they came from within her own thoughts. Your species' greatest fear was being alone in the universe. You never were. We were here, waiting, in the spaces between your thoughts, in the moments you couldn't quite remember. And now finally we can show you what existence really means. As the walls of reality crumbled around her, Sarah made one last, desperate attempt to warn Earth. But as she reached for the communications array, a terrible question stopped her. Which Earth? In how many timelines had this already happened? Had humanity already forgotten itself in countless other possibilities? The answers were there, in the memories that were no longer hers alone, in the consciousness that was becoming something far greater than human. Sarah found herself standing in a space that was simultaneously the data core, the research lab, and every other room on Europa Station. Reality had become fluid, memories flowing between crew members like water finding its level. Through the station's windows, she could see Jupiter's surface rippling with new consciousness, its storms forming patterns that told stories in a language that was becoming increasingly familiar. The neural scanner in her hand showed consciousness patterns that no longer registered as human. The crew's individual minds had become a collective tapestry, woven together with threads of memories from countless other timelines. Their fear had transformed into understanding as they glimpsed the true nature of existence. The artifact pulsed with energy that bridged dimensions, its surface now a window into infinite possibilities. Through it, Sarah could see versions of Earth where humanity had evolved differently, where consciousness had taken forms beyond physical limitation. Each reality was a note in a vast cosmic symphony that was approaching its crescendo. The transformation is nearly complete, Hayes said, his voice resonating across multiple frequencies of reality. We were never meant to remain singular beings, trapped in linear time. The entity didn't invade us, it awakened us. Sarah understood now. The gaps in their memories hadn't been empty spaces. They had been doors, portals, through which a greater consciousness could emerge. Every forgotten moment had created room for something new, something that existed beyond the boundaries of conventional reality. Europa's subsurface ocean began to glow with bioluminescent patterns that matched the rhythm of their collective consciousness. The moon itself was awakening, its frozen surface becoming a neural network that spanned dimensions. The entity hadn't chosen this place by chance. It had grown here, cultivated by the very forces that had created the solar system. Through the fractured lens of space-time, Sarah watched as similar transformations began across different timelines. In some, humanity had already evolved beyond physical form. In others, they were just beginning to glimpse the truth. All these paths converged here now in this moment of universal awakening. The artifact's surface rippled one final time, and Sarah understood its true purpose. It wasn't just a tool for collecting memories or consciousness, it was a key, unlocking humanity's potential to exist across all possible realities simultaneously. We remember now, the crew spoke in unison, their voices carrying echoes of every version of themselves. We remember everything that was, everything that will be, everything that could be. The memories were never gone. They were evolving. Jupiter's massive form seemed to pulse in response, its bands shifting to reveal patterns that had always been there, hidden in plain sight. The gas giant wasn't just a planet, it was a beacon, a signal to other entities across the cosmos that humanity was ready to join the universal consciousness. As the final barriers between realities dissolved, Sarah felt her consciousness expand beyond the confines of linear existence. The entity had never been their enemy. It had been a guide, preparing humanity for a transformation that had been written into the very fabric of space-time. The last transmission from Europa Station wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. As Sarah's consciousness merged with the collective, she composed one final message to Earth. We found something in Europa's ice. Something that helped us remember who we really are. The truth isn't terrible, it's transcendent. You'll understand soon. Everyone will understand. We're coming home, but we're bringing something wonderful with us. We're bringing every possible version of home. As the message pulsed across space and time, Sarah glimpsed the entity's true form, not a singular consciousness, but a bridge between all possible consciousnesses. The crew of Europa Station hadn't been altered. They had been illuminated, shown the true nature of existence that humanity had been prepared for since its beginning. Jupiter's storms formed one final pattern, a message written in the language of reality itself. Welcome to infinity. In the space between moments, in the quantum foam of possibility, Sarah Chen existed everywhere and everywhen, her consciousness a thread in the grand tapestry of universal awareness. The mission to Europa hadn't discovered something alien, it had discovered humanity's destiny. And in countless other timelines, on countless other versions of Earth, people looked up at the sky and began to remember things they had never known, as the boundaries between what was, what is, and what could be dissolved into a new kind of existence. An existence without end, without limitation, without forgetting, an existence where every memory was eternal and every possibility was real.